Hi, Signadot is a Kubernetes native platform that allows you to spin up many environments called sandboxes in a single Kubernetes cluster that share resources safely. In this demo, I'm going to be showing you how you can use Signadot to be able to test features that span changes in multiple microservices and pull requests. So let's get started here. Here is a demo application that is a sample e-commerce application that consists of a bunch of microservices. As you can see, this is the front end of the application where I can choose multiple products and add them to the shopping cart and be able to check them out. There you go. So here is the order confirmation page. And just to give you a context of the application that's running, this is the complete application is running in a remote Kubernetes cluster. Think of this could be a staging environment or a QA cluster that runs in your company. And the architecture of the application consists of about a dozen microservices, each talking to each other using HTTP or gRPC protocols. As you can see, what I just showed you was the front end of the application. Now, the use case here is to be able to add a new feature. In this case, it's going to be a shipping tracking ID that we want to add to the order confirmation page that you just see on the screen here. So right now, it only contains the order confirmation ID. We want to add the shipping ID to this application as the new feature. So here I'm going to be showing you this new feature consists of changes in multiple microservices. More specifically, it will include a change in the front-end service as well as the checkout service, because both of these services need to have changes to be able to get that shipping tracking ID here. And here I'm showing you a pull request that is part of the first change that's in the front-end service. So as you can see here, if I look at the diff of the file change, it's a simple enough change that I'm adding to the order summary page, which includes this tracking ID as the label, and it includes this field which is coming in from the backend response that it receives from the checkout service. And once this PR is submitted, we have Signadot integrated into the GitHub Actions pipeline in this case, where it automatically creates a sandbox for this PR. And once it creates a sandbox, you can see that the URL to the dashboard is posted very conveniently in the pull request itself. So I'm going to open up this URL that points to the Signadot dashboard. So here is the Signadot dashboard view, and you can see here it shows you details about the sandbox environment that was just created. And the sandbox has a few interesting fields that are worth looking into. So one is the ID. So every sandbox has a unique ID in the cluster. And then it has a bunch of name value pairs as labels, which we'll use in a minute as I go through the demonstration. And here I've added labels for Git branch, that's a branch from which it was created, and other things like team, or you can have arbitrary name value pairs here. Then there is a forked workloads section, which displays details about what workloads were forked in this case. In this case, there's only one forked workload, which is the front-end deployment that was based on the front-end chain that we earlier showed. And you can see that this is the name of the deployment that was used, and Signadot automatically creates this deployment for you. And this is the baseline deployment, which is basically running in the cluster. So note that a new deployment was created by Signadot as part of the sandbox creation. And then here you have a preview endpoint, which is a URL that you can use to access the application based on different entry points into the application. In this case, it's pointing to the front-end service. So I'm going to open up this preview URL in a different tab here. And you can see that this preview URL, if you see the URL field here, is hosted by Signadot, but it points to specific versions of the application running in your environment as part of the sandbox that was created. So in this case, if I access this application through this preview URL, you can see that I can go through the same workflow of adding items to the cart and placing an order. And now you can see that there's going to be a new shipping ID as part of this version of the application, because we use the URL that was linked to the sandbox that had the front end change in it. So this is one part of the feature that we wanted to test. So this is independent. You can test this change independently. You can preview this change. You can send this, you can share this URL with other stakeholders and they can preview this change, but note that this only contains the change in the front-end service. Now I'm going to show you the change in the backend service, which is the checkout service. So you can see the files changed here. We're going to get the shipping tracking ID as a new variable as part of the code. This is a Golang service. So this is part of the Go code here. And then the shipping tracking ID is added to the order result structure, which is now going to be passed to the front-end service as a response when it calls the checkout service. So again, there's going to be the sandbox details URLs that is being posted here. And I can actually go and see the sandbox for the backend service that's been created. And you can see the same labels and other metadata that is bound to the sandbox. And this also has a preview endpoint, which is again pointing to the front end. And note that this preview URL is independent. It will not contain the change that was made to the front-end service that I showed you earlier. So this only contains the change to the back-end service. And so I can't preview this because there's no front-end change corresponding to this URL. So now, just to set context here, we have two separate independent PRs, and each of them are associated with its own sandbox in the Kubernetes cluster. Now, what I want to show you is how we can actually link both of these sandboxes together. So I'm going to create what is called as the route group here. So I'm going to delete this one that was created from an older demo. So I'm going to create a new route group. So let's call it a demo route group. And here I'm going to match sandboxes based on the Git branch label that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to match on this label that starts with add shipping ID as a prefix. And I'm also going to have an endpoint which points to the front end of the application that's linked to this route group. And we're going to use the frontend.shop.service because the whole demo application is running in the shop namespace. So I save this route group, and you can see that it's immediately turned green, which means that the route group is ready to be used. And you can see that the label match criteria is here on how we are actually matching these route groups. And you can also see that it has matched these two sandboxes as part of the route group specification. And then you have a web UI front-end URL here, which is now going to be something that I use to preview the application. So I'm going to open up this. So you can see that this URL is its own unique URL bound to the route group, which now links both of the sandboxes together. So this is what makes it possible for testing and feature end-to-end, like how I'm going to be showing you. So again, I'm going to go through the same workflow. I can add multiple things to the cart, and then I can actually place the order. So in this case, you see that we now not only have the front-end change, which has this label, but also this back-end change, which is based on the change that we made to the checkout service. So Signadot was able to not only deploy multiple services to the same Kubernetes cluster, but it's also able to link them together based on the multi-tenancy model that we have in the cluster.